Welcome to the Finding Success Show, where we interview successful people so you can learn what it takes to find your own success in business and in life. Coming to you live from the Jersey Shore with your host, Justin Bosak, Abram Covella, and Steve Libman.
Welcome back to the Finding Success radio show, where we are looking for people that are achieving, finding, seeking, failing at, persevering towards, and ultimately gaining the success that they're looking for in life. Today, we are happy to have Josh Blair from Family First Funding in the studio with us. Thanks for coming out. Abe, Justin, as always.
Yeah.
Great to have you guys in the studio. How's it going?
It's going great. You guys are doing well.
Always trying, baby.
We're having fun.
That's it.
Yeah. I mean,
gotta have fun with it.
We get to sit in a room and talk to people about what success looks like in their life and how we're doing it, and hopefully we get to learn something and teach something to the listeners, so we're excited about it.
Awesome.
Cool, so let's just dive right in. Josh Blair, Family First Funding. A little bit of your backstory, where you came from,
Sure.
how'd you get into what you're doing, and we'll go from there.
That's a loaded question, right? You know? So I was born at a very early age. So
Fast forward a little bit.
We got dad jokes.
We got that done. Okay. So been in the mortgage banking business for 18 years now, and the backstory is pretty simple. Grew up in a hardworking middle class. My mom was a hairdresser. My dad was a factory worker, and didn't really have much. You know, the kids today are growing up in a completely different world than how I grew up, and probably many people out there.
Oh, absolutely.
And so hardworking middle class, and that's kind of the background. And early on in my life, and I didn't realize that my past really happened for me, but not to me, was to speak very candidly. When I was 18 years old, my parents lost their house to a foreclosure. My dad's company shut down. My mom had carpal tunnel, and she was a hairdresser, so she couldn't work anymore. And long story short, I'm graduating high school, getting ready to go to college, and they're like, "We're moving. You can come with us to South Carolina, or you can stay up here." And I, didn't want to move to South Carolina. I'm one of 4 children. Kind of was, getting my, my foundation of being a young adult here in New Jersey. So I said, no, I don't want to go. And, so there was a feeling of abandonment, there's a feeling of what do I do next? I was there when the sheriff came and knocked on the door and said, "Hey, kid, you got to get out." So I packed up everything, from the waterbed to the posters into my Hyundai Excel hatchback and had it all figured out. When you're a teenager, you do know it all, right? Yeah. Let's be honest. And, moved to Seaside Heights. And that was the beginning, which nowadays, it's not like that with many children. Whether there's more money, more resources. I'm sure there's other people out there that have had it even more challenging than me. But that was my beginning into the world, and it wasn't until I went bankrupt at 19, had multiple auto repos years later that I fell into the mortgage business.
So let's talk about that real quick, because I find this story happens a lot where there's an impactful foreclosure, repo, something like that, and then instead of learning from it and going the full other direction right away, you fell into it, right? You replicated what you saw versus... now, granted, we'll get to the other side of the story, but I think it's always interesting to point out that there is some tie to what you grew up in and some adoption of that into your life, whether you like to admit it or not. Yeah. Right? So why don't you speak to that just for a second in terms of like how you saw that going down and then how you got yourself into your own financial situation, and do you see now looking back on it that those two things may have been intertwined in some way?
No question about it. We all come into the world the same way, right? And it's what we learn. I believe that our soul is pure, and then everything else is just programming. We tend to do half of what our parents and teachers say, but do 100% of what they do. So the trials and tribulations that my parents went through, I kind of duplicate it. those behaviors, those patterns just kind of, fell into place. And I was basically, like you said, replicating that. So I guess the foundation or backbone to that was my parents were awesome as far as parents, but as far as hard workers. I mean, they always ingrained in me, if you work hard, if you put your mind to it, you can have anything that you want. So, going through that, as being, somewhat selfish or self-centered, I'm like, well, I thought in the beginning, this isn't fair. Here I'm trying to go to college, I'm working 2 jobs. You guys couldn't keep your financial world together, and now I'm stuck on my own. So for years, I didn't have a great relationship with my parents. There was this underlying resentment, like, and I'm doing all the C's. I'm criticizing, comparing, complaining, and it was definitely, not a great beginning at that point. Looking back, it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me.
It was a launching pad, right?
It was, because when I found the business or the business found me, I'm driving a buy here, pay here car. I'm renting an apartment, and I'm 28 years old, and I said, you know what, it's about time I stepped up here. I guess the pity party and the whole being a victim of what happened kind of came to an end. I guess that's when I really started growing up. I said, now it's time to make a change. And
what do you think that catalyst was? Was it a book you read, something you listened to? I mean, because I think we've all probably gone through that moment of where now we have to take responsibility for our own lives.
Right.
That we no longer get to blame other people for our station in life, right? And I think most successful people would argue that has happened to them. I know 50 and 60-year-old victims that still haven't had that epiphany, and they're still in the same station in life, and they're complaining and criticizing and things like that. So was there a catalyst to that, or was it just kind of your own aha moment?
At the time, right before I got in the mortgage business, I did meet my wife.
She was
my girlfriend.
That's it. Well, we know her, so we know.
So maybe that had something to do with it.
Absolutely.
So I did meet her, and
she deserves great things.
Before I got in the business, and it was just, and I look back and just so grateful that I had a car. Because then I would have been maybe in the car business. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I feel that where I'm at now, I can provide a more of an impact to people when I meet them. I'm glad I have food in the table.
Hours a week, right?
Yeah, I'm glad I have food in the table because then maybe I would have worked at a restaurant. So I just didn't have a house. So as much as it was, I met my wife. I wanted to have I wanted to kind of start my life. I said, you know what? I said, if I got a job in the real estate or mortgage business, worst thing that could happen is I won't get taken to the cleaners like my parents did with their house. I will mitigate learn how not to get into foreclosure, learn about basic financial planning. So, I was part of the .com industry that was kind of falling apart at the time. So I said, why not? And then I got in the mortgage business and didn't know much about the mortgage business at all. And basically said, worst comes to worst, I'll get a good deal on a house. Right. And that was how simple it was. I mean, so there was belief. I think belief is huge when it comes to success. You have to actually believe in yourself and what you're doing. But for me, it was just taking action. It was fight or flight. And, it was a matter of, okay, well, I'm going to go for this, and, grateful that I did.
Well, I like the fact that you got into it and your goal in the mind at that time was, I want to figure out a way not to make the same mistake as my parents. Right. And even if I get a house out of this, that was your goal. So you kind of set a stepping stone. I think a lot of people, and the whole purpose of the show is we're trying to teach people there's no shortcut to success. You got to set stepping stones. So like for you set that stepping stone and it's like, all right, you hit that. It's like, now where can I take it?
That's a mindset shift.
Yeah.
Like right there within itself. So you didn't know that you were going to become this super successful mortgage guy and have all these people working for you when you first made that decision. But
not at all.
The road took you there because then you had the belief in the foundation and just kept pushing.
And I think like all entrepreneurs, that eat what you kill mentality, that kind of sets us apart, right? Yep. Like, I'm not going to rely on somebody else for a paycheck. I'm going to rely on me because I've seen other people rely on others and then it goes away.
Yep.
So everybody says, like, don't you feel insecure working for yourself? No, I feel insecure working for everybody else.
Right.
Because I'm not in
Absolutely.
control of my destiny. Like,
Put me on a Steve Libman Island. That's it.
I like
Me,
to wake
myself,
up and
I.
go, I control the outcome of today.
Sure.
Right, wrong, or indifferent, good or bad outcomes,
Yep.
that's on me.
Yeah.
And it's a scorecard, right? Everybody's like, oh, well, you like to make a lot of money, don't like to make a lot of money. At the end of the day, money's just a scorecard, right? Are you doing well or are you not? Is your business and success tied to that? Absolutely not. We've talked about that on almost every episode here.
It's only part of the report card right there.
That's right.
Yeah.
But I like that eat what you kill mentality because I think the people that get into that business, it's very quick where they recognize whether they're going to sink or swim and whether they're going to really take over or if they're just going to be mediocre.
Yeah, for maybe some of you, but for me, it was necessity is the mother of all innovation, right? I mean, there was really no choice,
Right.
and it just popped in my mind. I mean, my dad was laid off, my mom was disabled, and it was a matter of that's not. Maybe that happened to expose me to what I didn't want, working, and not having anything to show for it at the end of the day. And again, and there's no resentment to what they did. I mean, both very successful, if you ask me. I mean, they raised 4 children, put us all through, we got through high school and had the opportunity to move forward. But, my brothers and sister are successful today. And again, it really came down to work ethic for them and really finding out what they wanted. So,
and that hard work, it translates, right? Yeah. I mean, so what we talk about a lot here is how the mindset of hard work doesn't relate necessarily to financial freedom all the time because we haven't been taught some of those foundational principles about how money works, right? Some of the hardest working people I know broke, right? So I think it's interesting that we are told to go to school, get a good job, work real hard, and then try to retire and invest in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and ETFs so that we could be financially free. But very few people that that have taken that path are really financially free, right? It's the great lie of Wall Street. So I think it's important to have that work ethic instilled into you, regardless of whether or not it translated to money or not, right? So definitely some good things from there. But again, going back to kind of the tie into what you grow up in, you start to become, unless you have one of those moments where it's like, I got to change. Something's got to be different.
Right.
And you had that. All right, so take us a little bit further now.
Yeah, so I got in the mortgage business, and that's where it was a surprise, but it was kind of no surprise. I realized that that people out there just didn't have the common understanding of what you just said, finances. I mean, what we learn about money, honestly, we learn from 2 places: our parents and our teachers. And, where do they learn it from?
Have you read that new Kiyosaki book?
No, what's the newest one?
Fake Money, Fake Teachers?
I did not read that one yet. No.
He talks about the fake teachers that teach us about money that don't have any money.
And they're out there. And they're out there. And they're on TV and they're selling books. And so, but yeah, so what we know about money, we generally learn from those 2 places. And where do they? I always say with my clients, well, where do you think they learned it from? And then where do you think they learned it from? Now, at the end of the day, I realized, I'm probably 29 or 30, and I'm like, I'm working on Abraham Lincoln thinking, here. This recipe of how things are done is being passed down from generation to generation, and people don't know what they don't know. And they think they know, but they really don't. And so I guess the unfair advantage or benefit I had in being in the business was I knew from associating with the right people that if you want something that somebody has, just do what that person has done. Success is very much a duplicatable event.
Absolutely.
If you want to cross a Japanese minefield, follow a Japanese person. That's in that that type of thing. So you follow what I'm saying? You want to follow that. You want to follow somebody that.
I still probably won't follow him through a Japanese minefield. That's right.
Yeah, but if you want to get through.
That's very anecdotal there.
Yeah,
well, but this has been brought up on every single show that we've done. Right? Is that there's nothing new under the sun, and the blueprint is what somebody else has done. Now you might tweak it and make it your own, but it's replicatable, right? Mm-hmm. Replicable? probably that one. And you can do it too as long as you can apply and execute on what you see other people doing. You don't need to come up with this brand new idea. Even when you come up with a brand new invention, that's not really necessarily the new idea, right? Getting that thing to market and getting that thing sold. So, yeah, mentors, getting around the people that are doing what you want to do. I think we've talked about this a lot.
Yeah.
But if you don't know what you want to do or you don't know how to get there, go find somebody that's living the life that you want, right? Sure. In those areas, and just say, hey, can I take you out to dinner? Right? Start asking those questions to those people, because what you need to do is shake off those parental and teacher mindsets that have been instilled to us if you haven't been taught how to get free of those things yet. And the people that can teach you are the people that are not in that same lane. We always talk about generational wealth on this show. What we don't talk about a lot is the generational poverty that gets imparted as people grow up, because they don't understand how to pull themselves out of that mindset. Now, we all know the stories of the people that do, but what we don't see is the millions of people that never do. And it's really just because they don't self-educate or get around people that are educated in that, right? Stop taking money advice from your broke friends. We always say that jokingly, but go take money advice from people that have jets. It's not.
Well, I always say that. So my mom was really good making chocolate chip cookies. So if you want to know about chocolate chip cookies, you would call my mom. But if you want to know about finance, you maybe not call her. Maybe you would call, your financial planner. So that's where I think a lot of people, growing up, I don't want to say it's just isolated to people that are in their teens or their 20s or their 30s. But what happens is, throughout life, we're listening to mom and dad as we grow up. And then we get to a point where, when our teenage years, where we possibly rebel and fall on our face and learn. And then we go back to our parents. And in many cases, people feel, well, if I don't do what they say, then there's a loss of love between us, or I'm not I'm not good enough. A lot of people will make themselves feel less than. The
sad truth is that sometimes that does happen in a family dynamic.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I've experienced this where, because you disagree, it looks like you are no longer loving or no longer respectful. Yeah. Right? So, I mean, this goes deeper into deeper toxicity than just, hey, we disagree. So I think that that's a real problem. And as a parent, right, we're all parents here. As a parent, I think it's our responsibility to take the emotional quotient and say, I'm going to be responsible for how I feel and how I impart that to my kids, and say, hey, it's okay to disagree with daddy. It's all good, right? Let's talk about why and create that transparency, because I'd love nothing more than for you to come up and say, hey, I disagree, and here's the reasons why, right? Logically lay it out, and then that's okay. Right? I'm not going to be disrespected because of it, but didn't necessarily grow up in that household with that thinking. It took time and honestly a lot of God's grace to pull me out of that type of thinking. Yeah. So the truth is that we don't like to think that exists, but we all know that it does. It does exist in that extra toxic environment where we can't have that communication of saying, hey, I love you, but your gifting is not wealth building. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. I mean, I think it's a healthy conversation to have, sure. Yeah. Right? Or it's, hey, I love you, and your gifting is wealth building, but it's not chocolate chip cookies. So,
and you nailed it on the head before about the kids that grow up in poverty. Their parents were poor, and they follow their parents, and tough time getting out. And the kids that grew up with their parents being successful, they're following their parents' guidance on that, and they ultimately end up outside of that bubble. So it's sometimes it's like, all right, well, what am I looking at here? How do I get out of it? It's like, maybe this is not the path I should follow and think of.
And it's different than the poverty that we think of when we look at dollars and cents in a bank account. Right? We're talking about a mindset.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? The poverty mindset versus the successful mindset is really what differentiates this from happening. So you get kind of tied down and bogged down into that poverty mindset, not necessarily because you didn't have anything or that you lost the house. Right? It's because there's not a growth orientation there, because there's not a learning curve of saying, I don't know, let's go find out together. Right? And when you think you know everything, you failed. Yeah. Right? And I think a lot of us have been around enough of those people where, we talked last show about creating our tribe. And that's what this radio show is doing, I think, is creating our tribe of people that, at the end of the day, everybody has the same success principles. It's going to be giving, it's going to be faith, it's going to be family, it's going to be all of these things that don't have a dollar amount attached to it. So it's going to be impact. like we were talking about before.
Yeah, that what he had said, Ed, about impact. What was it? Impact over
income
is really where it's at. And it's the tag on the conditions and the programs that we learn as a child. A lot of times they're traumatic. I mean, not just what I went through, but we only know what we know. There's a guy right now driving around in South Beach in a Ferrari, and he doesn't know that's what Dad did. He doesn't know any other way. There's somebody on WIC and welfare in the inner city maybe, and, they're 3 generations on WIC and welfare and assistance, and they don't know any other way. And then there's the middle class, the hardworking middle class. They don't know any other way. And I think that, again, I guess the blessing that I had was I was able to, when I got into what I do, look at the financial statements of people from all walks of life. And quite frankly, the stuff that a lot of what I've learned from my clients. What some people, what not to do, and some what to do. And
you get to look under the hood, right?
Yeah, and I'm like, this is interesting. So I just started noticing these patterns. And I had one client, they said, did your parents ever tell you, knowledge is power? And I said, absolutely. He goes, well, they lied to you. And I said, what do you mean? And I'm like, what, you talking about my mom? Like, what's going on here? And he's like, no, they lie. He goes, well, knowledge isn't power. He goes, think about it. Do you remember the Dewey Decimal System? And I said, yeah. He goes, and who taught you that? I said, the librarian. I actually had to take a test on it, And he goes, and how often do you use that now? I said, I don't. I use Google. He goes, so knowledge really isn't power. And think about it. If knowledge was power, then shouldn't the librarian be kind of running the world? Mm-hmm. They have access to all this information. So it's not, knowledge isn't power. And I think that's one of the head fakes is knowledge isn't power. Knowledge is only power if applied. So it's not just learning, it's applying what you know. And I think that holds people back because people get into that, that analysis of paralysis, or paralysis of wherever it goes, and they're just studying and studying. They become students of all this stuff. And
those are the people, by the way, that will argue with you to death about pretty much everything.
You saw that,
right? They all. This one guy popped in my mind just now. I'm like, man, this guy argues with me.
He did work at the library too.
Which is really
yes.
So
execution is power.
Just knows everything, right? But can't execute on anything. Why? Fear.
Yeah.
Right. So you can't. I don't think you can deparalyze yourself from fear by reading something, right? Yeah. You have to do it by looking deep inside and jumping and growing wings on the way down, and hopefully you have the people.
The faith,
yeah,
and jumping. It's like jumping in the water. When the pool first opens up and taking that step. That's it's the belief, and then it's taking the action to that, which
and it gets easier if you have your tribe around you. Where Josh just jumped in, I'm good, I can go, right? So it's having the right people around you, looking for the same things, understanding that this is not a roll of the dice. Mm-hmm. This is something that is tried and true, and when you execute and persevere and go up and go down, eventually you will win. And it's hard to see that, especially when you get started.
I think many times what held me back early on, and maybe other people, is, we tend to go back to our past to move forward. I remember when I was a kid, my mom would say, well, if we get lost in the mall, meet at the place where we last saw each other. And so and all these little things that we learn as children that served us then. Again, nothing from this point forward in the past was ever wrong. It all served us in one way or the other, if you look at it that way. Sure. It's what brought us to where we are right now. But in doing that, you really have to take the past and leave it in the past. Mm. If you lost a job, you lost a loved one, you lost a spouse, many times I think that fear that holds people back from taking action is that they revert back to the past and say, okay, where do I go from here? And let me go back to what worked for me before in the past. And though that may have served them then, it's not necessarily applicable to where they are now. So you got to leave the past in the past. And if you can start out if you leave the past in the past and you leave the present in the present, then you have a chance. But if you're constantly going to take your past and bring it into the present, well, then it's
a fight.
You're literally driving while looking through the rearview mirror, and then you're not able to get out of your own way.
A couple points to that. So my father-in-law is a pastor, and from the pulpit all the time, he says, "Can we let the past be the past at last?"
Right? I like that.
Please. And as you bring that past into your present, you're carrying a backpack full of bricks, right?
Yep.
You're trying to solve problems with the same thinking that created them in the first place.
Right.
So put that backpack down, right? There's a lot of pain and hurt and anguish, right? So we're all faithful guys. Like, we know the power of forgiveness and what that will do. Put that heavy backpack down. It might be painful still,
right,
but forgive, move on, let the past be the past. Don't let it define your future is huge mindset shift that needs to take place, I think, if you're going to have any level of success. And more than that, any level of peace in your life.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Josh, you mentioned early before when you were around 30 and you were kind of getting started in the mortgage business, you said there were some influential people that were in your life then. Who were some of those people that kind of like mentors or people you gravitated towards that kind of helped you gear towards the next level?
Specifically, it
has to be someone.
You don't have to name them, but
I've had coaches in this business, throughout, call them business coaches or life coaches or really good friends. Nobody I'm blood related to, by the way. So not that you can't find a mentor or a leader in your life that you're related to,
right?
But for me, I guess it was always somebody else. When my adulthood started like on my own, in my own apartment, 18 years old. So, it was really, that was my beginning. So I didn't really have I really didn't have a network. Like, everybody was not a warm contact. The people that I knew from high school, whether they be younger than me or older than me, I mean, they moved on. I never stayed in touch with them. So every contact I had and the coaches that I've come across and leaders and mentors have all been really, quite honestly, strangers. I've surrounded myself with some really good people, life-changing, not because they gave me the blueprint to success. They were just ahead of where I wanted to be.
Right.
And I was through that time frame, and still having those coaches and those people to lean on, a lot of failures, I must say. There's I guess the easy way to learn things, and then there's the hard way, and then there's the really, really hard way. And I think that's the way I went.
Let me know when you found the easy way.
The really, really hard way. And I think back to what Steve was saying about it's the fear. I mean, you can't. You're gonna fall down. I mean, if you're not, think about it when you're a kid. If you're afraid of falling on that bicycle, and you can't get over that fear, you're never gonna ride. So it was really about that, and it's that they call it growing pains for a reason. It's not growing joy; it's growing pain. Right. So so it was really when you're down, having somebody around you get you back up.
Yep.
Because we're all going to fall down. The question is, it's not really how many. It is about how many times you fall, but just as important is how many times you get back up, and how fast are you bouncing off that bottom.
The Bible says, "Fall down 7, stand up 8." Right? I mean, this is not new knowledge. This is thousands of years old, but what's difficult is the application of such.
The application. It's all about the implementation, right? So having those people pick you up, being around the tribe, the group of people that are going to say, get up again, try again. My mother always said, if you bang your head against the wall, enough times your ears will eventually pop out. Maybe that's what happened.
Is that where you get the analogies from, Mom?
So mom's a source. She's in my ear right now. But truly having a good group of people around you, like-minded people, that are there to pick you up and support you. And if someone doesn't have that person in their life, and then you just haven't met that. You just haven't met that person yet. But certainly they're out there.
And be intentional about going and finding them.
Exactly.
I mean, they're not going to just walk into your house one day and say, "Hey, I want to help you out."
They're not knocking on your door.
Right.
So it's about getting out there. And again, when you're going through that process and you're failing, it doesn't mean you're a failure. Maybe it was that behavior. Maybe it could have been a consequence that I call it a blind spot. You may have just hit a blind spot, and it's kind of like driving. There's blind spots out there. It doesn't matter how good of a driver you are. And a blind spot, if you don't check your blind spots and have a coach or a mentor or somebody there to help you with those blind spots, somebody could hit you. It's not your fault. Or accidentally, you could maybe hit somebody else when you're driving. It's not about point and blame. It's simply that it's a blind spot. It's just about growing from that blind spot and getting back up and doing.
My wife and I are intentional about that. pointing out each other's blind spots, not in a negative way. Just, hey, you have a blind spot here, and it's really appreciated because it saves us from a lot of wrecks, right? I mean, but having those accountability partners in your life, whether it's a business partner or just a friend or a mentor or a coach, and especially a spouse, right? They can let you know, like, you know, I always go back to this one time where I wanted to go do another deal with some person that I wrote off. And my wife was like, what are you doing? I said, I'm going to do this deal with this guy. And she said, do you remember what happened last time? And I have a very short memory, right? So I'm a really good forgiver, right? But I also forget real fast. Yeah. And my wife gently reminded me that this is a blind spot of mine, and you know, going back to a poisoned well is not a good idea. Right. And so that saves me, right, from doing probably another bad deal and getting another bad headache from it. But having those accountability people in your life, really helpful. We're here with Josh Blair, Family First Funding. We have had a great conversation so far. Thanks for coming in, Josh.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So I think the next springboard is, we've talked about a bunch of the struggle, failures, successes, a little bit. Where are you at now? How'd you get there? What's the last couple of years look like in terms of team size, your own personal well-being and growth, and what's your success looking like?
It's looking good.
Yeah, keep it simple.
It's looking good.
That's great.
You know, it's teamwork. You know, the acronym for that is together everyone achieves more. So, but things are happening now in my life that I don't understand. I'm wondering, is it that when I helped that little old lady cross the street, or I helped that woman at Grand Union put her bags in the back of the car, like, why is all this abundance, you know, happening? And I don't take any of it for granted. I really believe it's, and it's an ongoing process. You know, I think once you think you've figured it out and you know it all, as you said earlier, it's when you really are lost and don't know. So I'm just humbled every day, and even showing up here today, I'm like, I'm going to be around some leaders, some winners, I'm going to learn and have so already. So for me, I'm just beginning. You know, I'm just at that growing state. You know, I think the level of responsibility that is on me as, you know, as a husband, as a parent, and as a manager really suits me now. You know, I'm really growing into that responsibility. You know, when I was single and had no responsibility, maybe in an apartment lease, it's a little bit different, you know, because I'm trying to find my way. Now, you know, I've been married for 11 years, you know, have 2 beautiful children. And now I'm able to see a little bit further down the line. And the difference has really been, and we kind of touched on it, you know, self-development, you know, letting the past stay in the past, you know, surrounding myself with the right people, and really working on self. You know, a lot of what I found to be, you know, a differentiator and a catalyst for success has been my mindset. It's really been in controlling, you know, the 45 voices, you know, one for each ear in my head, you know, and really getting that together. So I find that in looking back, my not so much book smart, you know. I mean, I went to high school, I dropped out of community college, you know, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to make money because I came from a background where there was no money. It didn't really matter what I did. I mean, whether I was getting into the mafia, you know, driving a garbage truck or selling real estate, it really didn't matter. I just knew, you know, that I didn't want to live on oodles and noodles for the rest of my life. And, you know, I wanted to, you know, have a couple of bucks in the bank, and that was really it. But because of my mentors, I just started working on self. And I found that the more I grew, you know, personally, the more I grew professionally. And that translated into income. So that's pretty much, it was really about self-growth, self-improvement that got me to this point. And again, I'm just getting started.
You mentioned while we were off air for a few minutes, Josh, and we've talked about this in our previous episodes, that faith has been a big, strong part of where you are today. You know, and I'd love to hear that, you know, because I think a lot of people take that for granted, but I'd like to just, you know, have you talk a little bit about that and how that's helped you and your mindset and where you are right now.
That's a big question. Thanks.
Thanks.
Yeah, because when it comes to religion and politics and people and dynamics and you know, I don't know what's more uncomfortable, you know, that question or going to Thanksgiving with both my in-laws and my outlaws, you know. But for me, and again, it's not for everybody. You know, again, like you said, success is different for everybody, and for me, it's not monetarily. I think the more, you know, again, my income just matches my personal and professional development, and a lot of that is what I'm giving out. You know, that you truly get back twice, if not 3 times, of what you give out.
Right.
And you know, so when you talk about faith, you know, I kind of immediately think about the golden rule. You know, and you know, there's the golden rule, and then I heard that there's a platinum rule now. It's, you know, where it's you treat people the way you want to be treated, you know, or then it's treat people the way they want to be treated. You know, but at the end of the day, you know, doing unto others and has the way I would want that, you know, my experiences to be has really, you know, set me on a good path.
How's that look for like your team? And because obviously we haven't even touched on that yet, as far as like
everything with the team, because
you're a leader.
Exactly.
You're watching.
I get more. Yeah, I get more gratitude. I get more reward or emotional paychecks in when I'm helping somebody else. You know, why? You know, that's probably another question. Why do I get that joy? So I think it really just comes down to my spirit. I don't think that everything is 1,000%, you know, predetermined. I think a lot of it has to do with what we do, with what has been given to us. And, you know, my connection to God and my relationship in that area has grown immensely, you know, this year, last year, the year before. And as I work on myself and connecting to a higher power, I can't dispute the pattern there, you know. So yeah, I mean, it's not that it may be what it is for me, but that's not necessarily what it is for, you know, somebody else. But for me, the more that I am with God, as you had spoken before, and I'm, you know, focused on, you know, serving other people while serving myself, and you know, sharing that, you know, what the Bible teaches in that area, you know, helping others and doing the right thing the right way for the right reasons. By me just focusing on others, including my team, helping them get to the next level. It just has come back, you know, in tidal waves to me. And
but you've gone above and beyond, you know, because obviously we've done some things together with the church and with the Field of Dreams. You didn't need to. Yeah. But you just had the faith and just did it.
It's emotional. It's very emotional. Like when we did the Field of Dreams that night, I don't even know where I was getting that money at the time. Right. I'm like, what's going on here? And why did Justin set me up with Christian? What happened here? You know?
And you don't have a special needs kid, so it's a little bit different for somebody that isn't living that, but understanding that that exists, and I'm going to find a way to help out.
My uncle, he was autistic. It runs in my family, but there's nobody in my immediate family that has a disability. I just heard his story, and it was like, yeah, I can do something about it. You know, it's one thing to make money, but it's really another thing to make a difference. And I just said that, you know, this is what the need is, and I know that I can figure this out. You know, he gave me a financing plan, which helped, you know, which was good. If it was one lump sum, I don't know if I'd been able to be so.
But you have to grow in faith to be able to give to causes like that, right? Because you have to just say, hey, I'm going to trust that it's going to happen, but I'm going to make the commitment right now and sign on the dotted line. And what we were talking about before is you can't live in fear and faith at the same time. Yeah. Right? So you either believe that you're provided for or you don't believe that you're provided for. I think the biggest problem that I had as I grew into the person that I am today is believing that I was in control of everything in my life. Yeah. And when I had the epiphany that, and the freedom that comes with this, by the way, of recognizing that I don't have to be in control of everything because I have a Father in heaven that loves me and will take care of me as long as I believe that he will. It changed everything for me, right? We all talk about the hockey stick, right? It's like, here's this growth, and over the last 3 years, I've really grown in the Lord, but wow, my business has gone off at the same time. Weird, right? Me too. And, you know, I think that I think you can be unapologetic about your faith. Yes, some people will choose not to go down that road. Some people will, and the right people will reach out to us and ask us for our stories, and the other people will just take it for what it is, and that's okay. But especially in my family, I know that there was so much pressure, especially when building a team, right, and building a family, so much pressure on me going, man, now I have to be responsible for my wife and my kids and all these employees. And I didn't hire people for the longest time because I was so scared that their destiny was in my hands. And once I recognized, right, and God kind of revealed this to me through some prayer, like, hey, their destiny's in my hands, not yours. You're not all-powerful Stephen, right? I'm all-powerful God. And once I had that epiphany of like, oh, wow, other people's destiny is not in my hands, I could hire, right? I could hire, I could fire, I can be at peace with that because sometimes I have to release people into their destiny and see you later. And other times they'd be a great fit for the team. But at the end of the day, I didn't stress and lose sleep over it because I recognized that, hey, this isn't all me. And that was really a lot of freedom in terms of that growth curve. And I think if business owners can rely on that, they have a lot more peace in their business.
I think as far as, running a business, and I don't know exactly where it comes from, but we think that we can control everything. And if we believe we can't control everything, we believe that we can control everything in our business.
Yeah.
And then if we don't believe that, we believe that we can control everything in, our office and in our life. And the fact of the matter is you can't control the uncontrollable. That 4-letter word's going to happen in life. And it's not what happens to you, it's how you handle it. We were just speaking about something unfortunate that happened in someone's life way back when, and he had no control over that. He had no control over that, and it's so. But how he reacted to that makes all the difference, and things change. So it's not what happens to you; it's how you handle it. And I think when you're in business and you have that entrepreneurial mindset and you want to take over the world, you try to, and it doesn't mean you're micromanaging. You just want this done, with this done, with this done. And if you're not working with human beings, that may be very well possible and very well controllable. But as long as you're working with human beings, things are going to happen, and that they just do. Yeah. And again, I think it's a matter of, and that's where faith has really made an impact in my life. Was, this is bigger than me. And so
you're just playing a role.
Yeah, so it's a matter of just looking for direction spiritually, and getting that advice, and and that influence of, okay, how should I go about handling this?
Yep.
Thinking before you speak, but you also touched on something else, it's forgiveness. When you put the backpack down, so many people aren't willing to. They bring their past into their future because they never let go of it because they're their own worst enemy. I think everybody, whether you're a clerk in a store or you're a business owner, we are our own worst enemy, and whether that be from our programming of how we were brought up, which is probably the case because things have gone in way, things have passed down from generation to generation. But being able to live in the present, forgive yourself, understand you can't control everything. In fact, the more and more you think you can control something, it's probably the exact opposite. And for me, having faith, in my life, and what Ed had said in the prior meeting was, it's about impact over income, and that is really what has worked for me. Not focusing on selling a mortgage or selling a house, but really serving serving that family. I would say my client base. If my client base is 100%, I would say 80% of them are not even ready to buy a home. They were referred to me by a financial planner, realtor, or somebody and said, would you help them? And so...
so get them ready to buy.
Get them ready to buy. Some of these people, it's like, it's not right now. Mm-hmm. And I think part of, the reward that I've gotten, I sit down with more people that can't buy right now, and the reason why I sit down with them still for 45 minutes, an hour, however long it takes, and I go through a personal financial planning appointment. People will stop me and say, well, this has nothing to do with a mortgage. You're talking about saving money and what my budget is for Comcast and how does that work? And they're like, this is different. And I think because I'm not focused on selling them a mortgage, mm-hmm. I'm focused on making sure they understand their personal financial statement, that they understand budgeting, that they understand how important it is to, maybe go bankrupt and purge all this debt, or, do some debt consolidation. That I'm more focused on helping them. They care more. They understand, because of spending an hour, there's no charge. There's no, by the way, here's the pitch. You owe me this much money. They understand that, okay, this guy actually really cares. And it just goes back to my experience, because I had the bankruptcies. I lived on the oodles and noodles. I didn't have anybody there serving me. Nobody was there to serve my parents. The financial service industry, and I don't want to offend anybody, but I find it to be very discriminatory. Because if you have a lot of money and great credit, there's people out there willing to help you.
Yep.
If you live in that zip code and you have that background, there's, you're getting the guys, you're getting the hedge fund guys, the investment guys, the Dean Witters, the Morgan Stanleys of the world, and they're soliciting you on ETFs, and this is what gold's trading at, and the new IPO, and how do I, we got you in the new IPO, and and all that type of thing. But if you're hardworking middle class, like my parents, like me, like probably us, I think we all put ourselves still in that demographic. We're getting educated on the Dish, Verizon, Gutter Guard. We don't even, and we could be maybe renting an apartment. Like, why am I getting this in my Valpak? I'm an apartment. I rent. We're getting educated on that type of stuff. And so I find that for me, it's a personal thing. When I got in the business and I realized how much people don't know, I said, I'll be danged if I'm going to put somebody in a $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 responsibility and not give them all the tools and resources to beat the bank, to get ahead, to understand how this works. And so by taking that extra time and educating people, they just have found that to be very, who's going to help them? And if I don't take the time to help them, my feeling is nobody's going to help them, because they're all going to be overlooked.
Right.
And so I think really where I am, and again, just starting, getting it really rolling, is a lot of the goodwill that I did, or just the way I've operated my business from day one. I get calls from people and yeah, you did my mortgage 10 years ago. And I'm like, oh, great. And then I'm looking through my database and I'm like, they're not even on my list. Like, how did they track me down? They're not getting my newsletter. And now I'm like, I should put them on my list. And I'm like, hey, no, you helped me and you helped
Impact.
And it's like, wow, it comes back.
Yeah.
So that definitely helped my belief system, so it's what came first.
Yeah.
That I believe in doing the right thing, and then it happened, or was I just doing the right thing, and then more of the right thing started. So it's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? So
yeah, sowing and reaping is a thing, right? And what I love about it is it's testable and measurable.
Yeah.
So everybody's like, oh, you have blind faith. No, not true. Right? I can test, measure it, and show you documentation as to where my faith lines up with all of this stuff.
That's proven.
So I spent an hour on the phone yesterday with a lady who wanted to invest with us on the next apartment complex that we're buying, and she asked me a very prudent question, which was, don't you have hedge funds that'll fund these deals? And I said, yeah, I do. I actually had a guy who offered me a $50 million check to do equity for the next $200 million with acquisitions over the next couple of years. She said, well, why don't you just take that? And I said, well, because that helps Wall Street. That doesn't help you, right? I want to dig into your why. Why are you investing in real estate with me? Why are you looking for better than market returns? Why are you interested in creating generational wealth? Why is that important to you? And she's like, yeah, but you have to talk to a lot more people and blah, blah, blah. I said, great. I love that. Right? If we can help those people get from a place of, okay financially to financial freedom by doing this and not talking to Wall Street, yeah, I'm happy to do the extra work, right? Because nobody else is teaching these people that they can go out and do these and invest in these deals or get this type of financial planning. Like, why does my Comcast bill affect my mortgage? Well, because if you're not financially healthy, you shouldn't have a mortgage.
Exactly.
Right? So, all really good stuff. We have a couple minutes left, and I just want to touch on something that you said before while we're in the midst of this faith conversation. You gave us kind of your mission statement for the year. If you don't mind me asking you that on air. If you do, it's fine. I'll tell you mine.
No, it's fine.
Okay,
so it's about the team. It's about self. It's about the team. But for me, it's about the mission. I find that when you focus on the bigger picture, everything just falls into line. So it's always about the big picture. So it changes a little bit, but But at the end of the day, it's about sharing, radiating God's love, passionately serving others while serving myself, creating magnificence in everyone I touch. At the end of the day, it's making a difference. I think success for me is measured in how much positive energy and more importantly, what can I do with that positive energy to make a difference in someone's life? Because it's that butterfly effect. It's the ripple. I mean, with some people, it's like putting a boulder in a puddle. Some people, it's like throwing a pebble into the ocean. But every action has a reaction. And we were talking about that before. And if you can make that difference, like I know, like success in Trenton with Justin, that it was the progressive. It was, look what we did. That was success. And so for me, making that positive impact and following that mission statement, and it's a fluid statement. Success is fluid. It's not a destination. It's not like, okay, I'm here, I arrived. Again, when you've done that, that means you think you've learned it all and you're complete. And there is self-actualization, but even I believe when we do get there, there's still an involvement of that too. So again, I think that certainly success is a journey, not a destination. And how many people we can impact with our experiences and with what we've learned and what we know, I think is where it's at.
Yeah, enough naysayers out there, right? Enough people pointing at problems, and I think the most successful people I know are very similarly minded to wanting to impact other people, be a joy in their life, right? Have fun together, and just there's enough people pointing at problems.
Yep.
So, yeah, we can talk about that for hours too. So I love your mission statement. To be able to create magnificence, I like the fact that you recognize that it is something that's in our control to be able to do, right? So you can magnify God's love, you can create this magnificence. Really what you're doing is talking about how do you impact people in a positive way. Mm-hmm. And, you get to do it at home, you get to do it with your kids, you get to do it on the business front, right? And this show holds me hyper accountable too, because I always talk about how we're doing it on the business front, right? If I go home, my wife is listening to this and I'm not doing it on the home front,
yeah,
right? Swing and a miss.
Yeah.
That's it.
Because, that's another big part of that success is, well, am I being the husband I want to be? Am I being the father I want to be? The business owner is easy, as far as I'm concerned, right? What's hard is making sure that you're prioritizing the most important relationships in your life, right? God, your wife, your kids, your business, your clients, all of those things very important. I'm a big believer that your work is your worship, and you should go to work, and that's how you're worshiping. But also, are you being a good husband? Are you being there for your family, and are you doing the things that usually fall by the wayside when people achieve some level of success? The most successful people I know are not the ones with $10 million in the bank. They're the people with $10 million in the bank and a marriage of 50 years, right? So it's easy to have a piece of success, but if you don't create that holistic, what's that look like for my life, then your own definition of it, it's easy to get wrapped up into somebody else's definition of it. So important distinctions there that we've been talking about.
So how many families are you funding every year? How many families are you helping, really, I guess is the question.
Being hard on myself, I'd say not enough. But we're helping, I think the average is about 40 to 50 families in my network, my team.
Monthly?
The company that I work with and didn't really touch much on that, but again, huge reason. I've been with the bigger companies. I've been with this. I had my own company in the past, and Family First Funding. Not to give them a plug, but it's credit where credit's due. They have invested in all their employees, and they certainly have made an investment in me. And one of the easiest ways that they have done that is just leading by example. Gabe Gillen, the president of the company, is. Not only did he help a family, but he actually, through Habitat for Humanity, built a home. Mm-hmm. So in addition to the charities that we had mentioned in the Field of Dreams, he has taken the lead of giving back in a big way and serving families here locally. So, when you can surround yourself with the right people, not just because you want to be around them, but not just because of who they are, but what they stand for. It changes everything, because you're getting up every day and you're fighting for your family and you're going out there in the big world and making things happen. But you're also part of like you said, that tribe. And when you're all rowing together in the same direction, you're going to get there a lot faster. So, some companies have taken 17 years to get to $1 billion. It took us 7 years to get to $1 billion. We're constantly expanding in other markets and other states, and knowing that there's a great opportunity within the company, and it's really because of the families that they're helping. I meant we typically will do loans and take bets and invest in families and people that the bigger financial institutions are they want to overlook them. Mm-hmm. So, and whether it takes us 30 days to get their credit up, or it takes us, years to help them, it's the same throughout. And now I'm very happy to say nowadays, we're growing so fast, but we've never been more selective in who we bring on because of that whole association factor. The owners are young, and they're family, and so. It's real exciting that that the mission to help families out there achieve the dream of home ownership and beyond resonates from the top down. So it's awesome. It's awesome to be a part of a company that's growing, doing the right thing the right way for all the right reasons, and it's not just about the bottom line with the company. We give back. Just as much, our goal is to give back more than we can ever get. That's really the deal. And I'm real proud to be a part of the company and to be here today.
So, Josh, where can they find you if they're looking for you to talk about some of this financial planning, mortgages? Where can people
call me directly? Call me directly. My cell phone, my email, my website. My cell phone is
what's your website?
JoshBlair.com. So it's my first name, last name, joshblair.com. My phone number is 732-904-7856. Me and my team, I have a great team. We all work together. It was not an overnight to find the right people, but I'm very blessed to have a special team, and we're all here, to help.
I can vouch for that.
On the team now?
Yeah.
How many people do you have on the team now?
Now we're up to 8.
Okay.
Now we're up to 8. Yeah. I guess the word's getting out that we're doing the right by people, and and we're, without even having to market, we're just attracting success by, I guess, who we're becoming. Who the leadership of the company is becoming. We're just attracting good quality people that want to be a part of the mission, and it's great to be able to help people.
Well, we are honored to have you here. Thanks for the conversation. It's been a lot of fun. Finding Success Radio Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you for tuning in to the Finding Success Show.